You may have heard the term UTXOs and many screaming at you to manage your UTXOs properly. My name's Darren. I've helped thousands of people use Bitcoin just like you. We are going to cover what is a UTXO, what you need to do, how it affects your future transactions, privacy, how to select and consolidate them. And at the end of this video, I'm going to make sure this is the last video you need to watch regarding UTXOs. In Bitcoin, there's a lot of noise about UTXOs from online media, podcasts, forums, and I talk to people just like you every day who have questions of what should I do, maybe even jump to conclusions without fully understanding what they should do. In short, the topic of UTXO management is important, but honestly very confusing, and there's so many people saying different things. Easiest way to think about a UTXO, it's a deposit to your vault. Every amount you receive as a deposit, it stays as that deposit amount until you spend it, hence the unspent part. For example, if you received 0.5 Bitcoin to your Bitcoin wallet, you now have one UTXO and a total of 0.5 Bitcoin. If you received a 1 Bitcoin UTXO or deposit to your wallet, that is another UTXO, and you now have a total of 2 UTXOs, one at 0.5 Bitcoin and one at a full Bitcoin. Let's say you received 2.01 Bitcoin transactions or deposits. You now have 2 more UTXOs, each of them at 0.01 because they were 2 separate transactions, for a total of 4 UTXOs across your vault at 1.52 of your total Bitcoin wallet balance. These deposits will stay at these amounts until spent. Now that we know the basics, let's talk about spending them. In this situation in your wallet, if you were to send 0.9 Bitcoin to somebody else, you would have to choose one of the UTXOs to send. Bitcoin wallets typically do this automatically for you, but could you send the 0.5 Bitcoin UTXO? No, because it's not enough to cover the 0.9 you have. Same with the 0.01 UTXOs. So we would have to choose that one full UTXO to send somebody 0.9 Bitcoin. Imagine your wallet consists of UTXOs that are bills. So we're using that 1 Bitcoin bill to pay for the 0.9 Bitcoin transaction. You're telling the receiver, here's my 1 Bitcoin bill. I am sending 0.9 to somebody, and the change I receive is the 0.1 back to myself. This is called your change address. Bitcoin wallets have both receive addresses, where you're receiving for the first time, and change addresses, where the remaining amount on that UTXO is sent back to yourself. So now in this situation, if we made that transaction, we would have a new 0.1 Bitcoin UTXO, our original 0.5 Bitcoin UTXO, and our 2 original 0.01 UTXOs, for a total of 0.62 in our vault with 4 UTXOs. To an onlooker, this looks like 4 separate balances entirely, not knowing that these balances are owned by the same person or controlled by that same Bitcoin wallet. While the Bitcoin network is anonymous, it is transparent, so anyone in the world can pull up UTXOs and addresses that store Bitcoin deposits on them. Now, having multiple UTXOs might be great for privacy. For example, if you wanted to buy something today in Bitcoin that is worth 0.005, you would have to pull one of these bills out of the wallet. Let's picture this 0.5 Bitcoin bill that's in your wallet is essentially worth $50,000 today as I record this video. You wouldn't pay for a $500 item with a $50,000 bill, would you? The same is true for Bitcoin transactions. Let's say if you chose that 0.5 Bitcoin bill, that person receiving it would see that you have 0.5 Bitcoin, though you're just sending them 0.005. This is where spending that 0.01 Bitcoin bill in your wallet, or UTXO, the receiver would only see that you have the 0.01, a lot better for your privacy moving forward. Now, a receiver can also see multiple UTXOs or deposits to one address if you use the same deposit address over and over. So if you were just sending Bitcoin deposits to the same address over and over, they would see how much Bitcoin you own, regardless if you just chose one UTXO to spend. Now, majority of Bitcoin wallets change up or provide you a fresh Bitcoin address for every deposit to avoid this situation. However, many exchanges, or if you're a vendor, it's a lot easier to send somebody Bitcoin over and over again if you just provided them one address. So privacy-wise, it's optimal to use a new Bitcoin address each time So let's talk about if you wanted to move that entire balance to a new wallet, you wanted to sell the entire balance. So when you want to send the entire balance, it's a consolidation transaction. You're telling the Bitcoin network all 4 of these deposits I'm putting together to send to a new address. Now, when you send Bitcoin on the network, you actually have to pay transaction fees. You actually are paying not for the amount of Bitcoin you're sending, but for the data that you're sending. So each UTXO comes with its own data that's associated with it. The key information, what address it's associated on, the forum information, the history of where that Bitcoin came before. So the average data sent per UTXO on what Bitcoin address you're currently using is important to know. What you're seeing here is the average size per byte of a UTXO under this address type. And there's multiple Bitcoin address types in the world. Not only is the Bitcoin price always fluctuating, but the fee rates are always fluctuating on the Bitcoin network. The fee rates are calculated in sats per vbyte, and a sat is 1/100 of a Bitcoin. This is the fee you're sending to the miner. You're essentially in an auction system with all the rest of the transactions, trying to pay the miners to write your transaction into the history books forever. And there's only a limited number of space that they can include every 10 minutes. Today, transaction fees are relatively cheap, around 2 sats per byte. But in early 2023, fees spiked to around 300 sats per byte. Let's look at this consolidation transaction we talked about previously. So per each UTXO is on average 148 vbytes. So if we multiply that by 4, we're looking at 592 vbytes. And if we multiply that by the current fee rate today, let's say it's 2 sats per byte, that would be a total of 1,184 sats we'd be paying to the Bitcoin network to move our Bitcoin. We can really stomach spending $1 to move $62,000. If we were to do this transaction in a high fee environment where the sats price gets to 200 sats per byte, very rare, but very possible that we would be there one day. Fee is now 200 times that 592, which is around 100,000 sats, which would be closer to $100 today. Now, again, you could stomach spending $100 to move $62,000. That's fine. But what if you had 50 UTXOs? Then you would be looking at around 7,000 bytes to send a transaction. It'd be 7,400 times 200 sats per byte in a high fee environment. You would be spending up to 1,000,000 sats, which is about $1,400 today to send a transaction if you had around 50 deposits in the highest fee time. In the future, that 1,000,000 sats could be worth $14,000 one day if Bitcoin hit 1,000,000. Would you be able to look back and stomach saying, ooh, I paid $1,400 or $14,000 for a single Bitcoin transaction? I think not. So not only is the fear of losing future Bitcoin very high in having too many deposits in a high fee environment, you also may have the risk of having an unspendable UTXO, meaning to send maybe $1,000, it may cost you $1,000. So it's just not really worth it for you to send at that point. So remember, it's not the amount of Bitcoin you're sending, it's the data that's associated with your UTXOs that you're paying for. So for the above reasons, there's a way to help future-proof losing Bitcoin. And you may have heard of the term UTXO consolidation. This means combining your UTXOs to minimize the amount of UTXOs you have, or making the UTXOs larger. Now, UTXO consolidation in practice is literally just sending the Bitcoin back to yourself on a new address. Because your Bitcoin wallet comes with hundreds of different addresses that you can deposit to, you can safely just send the Bitcoin back to yourself. In our example, you can take the entire 4 Bitcoin deposits and send it back to yourself. This would create 1 UTXO in your wallet. Again, this can be terrible for privacy, so you may want to use UTXO selection in selecting specific ones to combine. Majority of Bitcoin wallets support this feature, but they're kind of hidden. For example, on Trezor Suite, Ledger Live, they're hidden for you, as it just would typically automatically select the cheapest UTXO for you. Now to recap, here are my recommendations when it comes to UTXOs. If you have too many UTXOs, it can get expensive to send. Anywhere around 15 to 20 UTXOs, you should think about combining those deposits. Second is try to keep your deposits large. You don't want to have small deposits. You don't want to be sending to your wallet $5 every day and get 365 deposits multiplied by 5, multiplied by the fee rate when you go to send Bitcoin. Here's the recommended deposit size per vault address. So if you're DCAing, just get that amount before depositing it to your storage solution. And the next tip is to use a software that allows UTXO selection to help organize yourself. It may not be the case where you want to put all of your UTXOs in one. It may be the case where you want to selectively choose which ones you want to spend in a specific time frame. So make sure you're using a Bitcoin wallet software that allows you to do that when creating a transaction. Also consider privacy. Anytime you send Bitcoin, think about, what is the receiver seeing on my end? Would it be better to send a couple smaller UTXOs? Or does it really matter? Like, I'm just holding for the long term, and one day when I go to sell, I don't care if somebody sees I have 10 Bitcoin. There's really no good answer on what you should do. Do you like cheap fees and future-proofing yourself, or do you prefer that privacy benefit? Really, it comes down to how you use Bitcoin, what you think your own personal risks are. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help in any way I can. Just leave a comment below. I'll try to get to it as quick as I can, or you can reach out to me directly. If you want more tutorials on how to use Bitcoin, how to store Bitcoin, the best places for you to buy and sell Bitcoin, I have a lot of videos on my channel, even listed them all on my website, bitcoinstartingpoint.com. And thanks for watching.